So my topic for today is I'd like to share with you the top 5 must-dos to assist you in your job search. So this might be for you if you're currently in the job market or you're thinking about moving on to somewhere new. And if you know anyone who's in that situation, do please share this with them so they can hop on live and gain some really valuable help and information that can help them to move forward in securing their next role. And do remember, this will also be available to watch on a replay on my page as well. Okay, so the top 5 must-dos to assist you in your job search. Why am I talking about this today? Well, here's the thing. Right now, the job market is pretty much saturated. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people going for each individual job. Why? Because there's a lot more people in the job market, in part because of the global pandemic over the last 12 to 15 months, and the fact that a lot of companies have sadly had to let go of some of their staff, which means that some of you might be in a position where you found yourself in a situation you really didn't expect. You weren't planning for. You may be quite happy where you were, thinking that you'd be there for the next at least couple of years, few years perhaps, and now you find yourself in the job market and maybe you're struggling because of the level of competition out there. And also the work landscape has changed. So maybe you're struggling because you just don't know what to do and how to gain that exposure, to get known in the market so you can secure the next role. And by being a saturated market, there's so much competition out there. This means that it's really important for you to stand out, to differentiate yourself, and ultimately to harness your competitive advantage. And this is what I mean when I talk about personal branding, is what can you do to really stand out from the crowd so that people that matter, in other words, those decision makers, the hiring managers, the recruitment consultants, all the people who are in that decision-making process, have you top of mind when the next ideal opportunity comes up and they think, actually, I know someone who'd be a great fit for that. Or they'll refer you to somebody who they know is recruiting. So that's where it's important to be top of mind. And by doing so, it means building a strong personal brand. And it's not only about your LinkedIn profile. Of course, that's important. And by having a strong LinkedIn profile, it means that people will come towards you. They will more likely connect with you on LinkedIn because they can see that you've got great experience, the skill sets. You're selling yourself on your LinkedIn profile. Because remember, your LinkedIn profile is your shop window. It's your sales page. It is not your CV. So if you haven't written it up as more of a sales page, as your shop window that's representing all that you are and all the value that you've got to bring, you might want to revisit that. So I'd like to share with you today, as I said, the top 5 things that I believe are the must-dos to assist you in your job search. And some of this is drawn in part from the clients that I'm working with currently and have been recently, and some of the things that they've had to do in recognizing what works and what doesn't work. So do say hello. I can see there's a number of you watching live today. Say hello in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. And also let me know if you have any questions on what I'm sharing today. And if you know anyone who is currently in the job market or who is thinking about moving to somewhere new, then do share this with them live so they can check it out now. They can hop on and ask me any questions, or indeed they can watch the replay. Okay, so what are those 5 things that I'm thinking about that I'd want to share with you? The first one is getting certainty or creating certainty in yourself. And what I mean by certainty is confidence in the way that you're showing up. And this is a big part of your mindset. It's that internal dialogue. It's all the stuff that we're telling ourselves internally that can directly influence the way that we show up. And people will pick up on that very, very quickly, whether they're speaking to you on the phone, on Zoom or Teams, or even meeting you in person. So it's the first thing that you really want to work on, to develop and to hone. And it may be the case that if you have been let go, if you've been made redundant recently, that can often really knock our confidence. And what that means is that we might find ourselves now lacking that certainty that we used to have in ourselves, because we had that loyalty maybe to our employer. We thought that we were going to be there for a while, and then suddenly we find ourselves not in a job. So here's the thing to consider when it comes to creating certainty in yourself, here are some things that you can do to help with that. And I'm just referring to my notes here because I planned this out, so I've got some notes to refer to so I don't miss anything out. The first thing you want to consider is the value that you bring to the table. And for those of you who've joined me live before, you'll have heard me talk about this considerably at length. So what is the value that you have got to bring to the table? So how can you figure that out? Well, grab a notebook and a pen, the old-fashioned way, and sit down and just create some space for yourself and really think about the past jobs that you've had. What have you done before? And what are the great things that you've done? What have been your accomplishments? What have been your successes? And then think about, for example, projects that you might have worked on, or if you've been in a client-facing role, a sales role, a BD role. How successful have you been there in terms of deals that you've closed or new clients that you've won, that you've brought into the business, great relationships that you've established, maybe feedback you've received on pieces of work that you've done. Really give some thought to all of those things. Go back to the year dot and the first jobs that you've had and think about all the good things that you have done. Why? Because oftentimes our brain automatically goes to the negative. It goes to the things that have gone wrong, that haven't gone well, where we might have messed up with something. But here's the thing. We often forget all of the amazing things that we have done, the great feedback that we've received on pieces of work that we've completed, maybe on projects that were delivered over and above expectations or ahead of time. Perhaps it's smashing your sales quota or bringing in some great new clients to the business. It can be anything. But really switch your focus to all of the good things and write them down. There's something about using your pen and actually writing things down on a piece of paper that really instills it in your brain, and it makes so much more difference or more impact than if you simply type it up on your laptop. So that's why I'm insisting that you write these things down. And also alongside that, think about your abilities. What are your strengths? What are you good at? But also what energizes you? Because for me, I always say that, people talk about their strengths and focus on your strengths. My issue with that is that strengths are things that we're good at. They're things that you can measure up based on our performance at something. But actually, for me, strengths are things that energize us, that light us up. Because we could be really good at something and we spend all day doing it. And at the end of the day, we are, it draws our energy. So we feel exhausted. We feel like it's a long day. We keep looking at the clock and it drains us rather than energizes us. And so for me, it's important to really look at what energizes you. Now, it doesn't mean that you're really good at, that everything you're good at energizes you. But what it does mean is the things that do energize you are things that even if you're not really good at, you can keep working to develop them, hone the skills and master it. So really focus on the things that energize you, you love to do, and break it down to the smallest tasks so you really get clear on that. Because there can be certain tasks, and I always use the example of Excel spreadsheets. As an accountant, my background as an accountant early on in my career, I obviously used to spend a lot of time on spreadsheets. Now, spreadsheets are a strength that I have using Excel. However, if you were to say to me to spend all day doing like cost models and analysis and all that kind of thing, that would not energize me. That would drain me, even though I'm good at it. But if I got to use Excel in different ways, for example, if I'm doing some project planning, or I used to use it in my sales exec role for my forecasting and mapping out my deals and the progress and all, looking at my numbers, then that's okay. I love doing that. That energizes me. Do you see the difference? So you really want to break down those tasks to the nth degree and look at what energizes you, what lights you up. Because remember, we spend 30, 40, 50, 60 hours a week working. We want things that are going to energize us, that are going to light us up, that we're going to enjoy, that make us feel or have us at the end of the day and the end of the week feeling fulfilled. So that's the second thing. So number one is when we look at creating that certainty in yourself, the first part of that is to look at all the accomplishments, your achievements, what you've done really well, your successes, the recognition, maybe you've had awards, really positive feedback. So all of those things, your achievements, your accomplishments, The second is your abilities and what your strengths are, what you're good at, but also what lights you up. Then look at your experience. So write it down. What kind of experience have you had? What kind of companies have you worked for? What industries? What regions? Is it UK based? Is it global? Is it EMEA? Is it Americas? Is it Asia Pac? You know, look at all the different experience. Look at the styles of communication you've had to bring into your roles. What have you had to do? Have you had to present? Have you had to run meetings? Look at all the different types of experience and write it down. This is not a CV exercise, by the way. This is just literally writing, journaling, scribbling, whatever you want to call it. Almost like a bit of a brainstorm to really help you to reinforce how good you are, which will in turn reinforce the certainty that you've got in yourself and your confidence. Why is this important? It's important because by reinforcing that how good you are, recognizing it for yourself will increase the certainty that you have in yourself and your confidence in the way that you show up. Why is this important? Because people are more likely to hire someone who comes across as having that confidence and that certainty in themselves, rather than someone who doesn't. Maybe you did before, and if you are someone who has maybe been let go and didn't expect to find yourself in this situation, it might have knocked you for six, and therefore it directly impacted your levels of confidence. So this is why it's important to really work, number one, on creating certainty within yourself. So I can see some comments have come in here. Let's just take a look. Monpolaki, hello there. How are you doing? You're watching from Botswana. Good Lord. Amazing. Thank you for joining. That's fantastic. I hope you're enjoying this. Let me know if it resonates with you, if you've got any questions on what I'm sharing. Thank you. Christoph, hello there. How are you doing? Using a pen and writing it down instills something in the brain. Couldn't agree more. Made it my business model. Energizing it is. Love this. Thank you, Christoph. Lovely to have you here as well. So for those of you watching, I know there's a number of you on. Do say hello. Let me know where you're watching from, if this resonates with you at all, and also if you have any questions on this. And if this is something you are already doing in terms of helping to instill more certainty and confidence in yourself, particularly if you are in the job market right now, and what can you do to improve that? Because if you think about this, everyone talks about having the confidence, but think about it. Who are the people that you tend to gravitate towards? Who are the people that you look up to, that you respect, that you perhaps are your role models? Are they the people who exude that certainty? Do they exude the confidence? Or are they the people who lack the confidence, who maybe question their ability? They show up lacking that certainty. They're not sure. They don't know. The way they communicate, it comes across. Believe me, the way that we show up makes a difference to the way that people respond to us. And that's a subconscious thing. It's not something that we're always thinking about, but it's just natural behavior. So if we show up in a way we have that confidence and that certainty in ourselves, it means that people will respond differently towards us in a more positive way. And you want to create certainty in other people of yourself. So if you are struggling with that, those are some of the things you can do. Look at your achievements, look at your abilities, your experience, all the value that you bring to the table. In addition to that, what you can do as well is to reach out to people that you've worked with previously. Ask them for recommendations, ask them for testimonials. It can be on a piece of work that you did, a project that you did together, maybe a client that you've worked with where you got great results for them, or your manager, or somebody in your team, in your peer group. Think broadly of the people that you have worked with who've seen the best side of you and your great work, and reach out to them and ask them for testimonials and recommendations. Now, I always advocate that where you can, get people to add this to your LinkedIn profile so that everyone can see it. In some cases, people aren't comfortable doing that, and that's okay. But if they're happy to give you something, take it. Take an email from them, because it's not only about sharing with other people in terms of what of how good you are, but it's also about, again, reinforcing the certainty in yourself that you do have value to bring. So that's the first point. The 5 points I'm going to share today with you, right? This is all about what's important, your must-dos if you're currently in the job market or considering your next move. So number 2 is clarity. And when I talk about clarity, it's about getting clarity on yourself. So what is important for you in that next role and why? The why, of course, is so, so important. So for example, it could be the location is important for you, the flexibility in working, whether you can work remotely or if you have to be in the office 5 days a week. All of these things matter. And they're important as part of your decision-making process. So really take the time to think about what is important for you. Also look at, when we think about what's important, what kind of companies are important for you? What kind of companies would you like to work for and why? Are they the bigger global corporates or is it a small startup? Is it a smaller to medium-sized business? And also think about the industry. Is there a particular industry that you would like to work in or to move into? You don't have to stay in the same industry for the rest of your life. You can move around because most of our skills are transferable. Early on in my career, I moved around initially quite a bit to different types of industries and organizations, although I spent the latter part of my career, so most of it in the technology industry. But you've got transferable skills. You can take them anywhere. So really think about what kind of industries you'd love to work for, the kind of companies, the size, the location, their values, the flexibility in working, if that's important for you. And also think about the roles, the tasks, the responsibilities. So drawing upon your strengths that we talked about in helping you gain certainty, also look at the kind of roles that you want to be doing and get really clear on it. Because sometimes the reason I say this is that sometimes you'll find yourself, particularly if you have been let go and it's been very unexpected, it's come as a shock. First of all, your confidence might have been knocked, but also now what are you thinking? I need to get another job. And now it's like anything will do, it doesn't matter. And really, if you think about the fact that you're spending so many hours a day and a week working, you want to be in a job that you enjoy, at least in some part. And you want to think carefully about your next move. So this is why it's important to gain clarity on what is important for you. So things like, as I said, the kind of organization, the kind of roles that you're looking at, and their values, and also the culture of the organization, as well as things like their flexibility in working, if that is something that really matters for you. And also location is important. If you have to be in the office 5 days a week, do you want to be spending 2 or 3 hours a day commuting, or have you decided, having gone through the lockdown, that actually no, you don't want to spend all that time traveling? Be honest with yourself, because if you're not, you'll end up feeling resentful. Let me know if any of this resonates with you, if you have any questions, and if you've just joined me, do say hello. So that's the first 2 points, certainty and then clarity. Number 3 is be curious. What do I mean by being curious? It's about being open to possibilities. So whilst I want you to get clarity on what's important to you, also be open and curious to other possibilities, because you never know where that could take you. So be open to discovering other industries maybe that you've not considered before. In other words, have your ideal, get clear on the what you want and why you want it, and still continue to be open to other possibilities, because there might be things that you've never considered before, things you haven't thought about. Maybe you've not worked in a set of, I'll use accountancy as an example. So, there are some people who will have worked in very straightforward financial or management accounting. And because of where they've worked, they've not been exposed to more of the commercial finance roles. So they're not aware maybe that they even exist. So think about, if something comes towards you, an opportunity, and it's like, oh, that's not, I want to be, financial accountant and I want to be those kind of roles. But actually look at it and think, okay, would I enjoy this? Question it, be curious, and think about whether you'd be open to at least exploring it to see what it's about. And also speak to people. So again, drawing on a finance role, speak to other people who are doing very different finance roles from what you have done, who've been exposed to things that you haven't, and learn from them, understand from them what they love about it, their experience of it, and think about, okay, would that be something that I'd be open to doing? Maybe, maybe not. So this is what I mean by being curious. Okay, so we've got creating certainty in yourself, clarity. So getting clarity on what you want to do, what's important to you and why. And then be curious. So be open to other possibilities. And number 4 is contacts. And oftentimes people forget and they overlook this. I had somebody I was speaking to recently, and I just mentioned it in passing in conversation. Well, you know, have you done this, and this, thinking it's obvious, and actually it isn't always. So that's why I wanted to share that with you. Think about your contacts. If you're currently in the job market or you're looking for your next move, think about the people that you have in your network already. And again, get a pen, get a piece of paper and write them down. Think about the roles that you've worked in before, the people that you've worked alongside, the people that you've worked for, the people that you've interacted with, and make a list, okay? Because you'll be surprised at how long that list is. You know, it doesn't mean that you've become best friends with them or you're necessarily still in touch with them, but just think about people you've interacted with, you worked together for a while, maybe you sat next to for a long time, even though you didn't work together. There's so many different examples. So start thinking broadly about your contacts. Why am I saying this? Because a high proportion of roles are currently being filled what we call through the back door. In other words, through who you know. So when it's about who you know, it's like, okay, well, who do I know in my network who might be recruiting, hiring, or who may know somebody who might be hiring for somebody like myself? And you need to leverage that right now. You want to be having those conversations. So even if somebody you speak to isn't hiring, they might go into a conversation in a week's time and speak to someone who is, and they're looking for somebody with your skill set, with your experience. So you want to make that list of contacts, and also remember to reach out to some of them and get some feedback, get some testimonials, get some recommendations. And then the 5th thing that I'd like to share with you is to connect. And connect is about reaching out to your contacts. So that list of people that you've identified, think about who are your warmest contacts, who are the people who you've worked with more closely. So even maybe mark it on a scale of 0 to 5. So 5 are the people that maybe you became friends with, or you used to go out for drinks with, that you got on really, really well with. Mark those as number 5. And number 1 are the people that maybe you've had some interaction with, but you never particularly close. So score them and then start by connecting or reconnecting with the ones who've got the highest scores, so the 5s, and then go to the 4s, because they're easier to reconnect with, they're easier to reach out to. And then you might be thinking, what do I do? What do I say to them? You know, it may be that you've not spoken to people for 5 years since you left that organization. I had a client recently like that who he hadn't thought about it, and then he started reaching out to contacts in companies he'd worked with, some from like 5-10 years ago, and actually he's now secured a role because of that, because the people that he spoke to introduced him to other people who were hiring. Okay, and because they recognize your strengths, they have a lot of respect for you, they know you, they're more likely to recommend you. So really do go back as far as you can, thinking about your contacts, and then reach out to them. So ask them, you know, message them on LinkedIn. If you're not connected, start by connecting with them. You know, just don't just send them a connection request, but actually put a message in there to reconnect with them. And then ask them if they'd be open to a short conversation. You know, 10-15 minutes of their time is all you're asking for. And believe me, most people are happy to help. I often hear people say, well, oh, why would they make time for me? Why would they even want to speak to me? Believe me, people love to help and love to help connect as well. So think about the people that you can reach out to, message them, rekindle that relationship on LinkedIn, on text message if you've got their phone number, and then ask them and say, look, you know, I'm in the job market at the moment, or I'm actually considering my next move, and I'd really appreciate 10 or 15 minutes of your time to have a conversation. I'm just looking for a bit of advice. This is exactly what my client did. He reached out, he wrote that list down, and he went back to people he's worked with over the last 20 years and started having conversations. And it created, by the way, a number of different opportunities and conversations that led on to other conversations. So this is really, really important, particularly now when the job market is much more saturated. It is busy. You need to be able to stand out. What can you do to leverage yourself and your situation and draw upon your competitive advantage, differentiate yourself. One of the big things here is to be proactive, to show initiative. So really do utilize your network. If you feel like, oh, I don't have a big network, maybe you haven't taken the time to nurture your network historically, but you can do that. You can start from today. That's okay. Just go back and be friendly with people. Ask them how they've been doing. You know, how's the pandemic impacted them? Is everything okay? You know, if you knew their family when you used to work with them, you know, mention it. Bring back that connection, that relationship that you had. And as I said, ask them for some time to hop on a call or onto a Zoom and have a conversation. Or if you're able to meet them in person now, you know, could you meet up for a quick coffee? And then prepare for that meeting. Most importantly, prepare for that meeting. Think about the outcome you want from that conversation. You know, and it could simply be some referrals to some colleagues or friends of theirs who that you could speak to. So think about it that way. Think about what it is you want from the conversation, but also don't just think about what you want from the conversation. Think about what you can give to this person. So do a bit of research. If you know, see what they're doing now. You know, what could you do? Because you know, there is something such as reverse mentoring. We can all learn from each other. It's not a one-way process. So think about how you can help them. And if you can't think of anything, ask them. You know, if they're very helpful and forthcoming when you talk to them, ask them, well, what can I do for you? Is there anything I can do for you? You know, how can I help? You know, maybe think about some skills that you've got to offer. You know, for me, I think about technology is a big one, because the younger generation are much more savvy with a lot of the wider technology, perhaps, I'm making a bit of an assumption, than some of the older generations. So it might be, for me, I'm talking about myself here, by the way. So it might be that I am helping someone out and giving them some advice or pointing them in the right direction, but actually they're really hot on Instagram. Let me be honest, I'm not. So I could say, well, actually, do you know much about Instagram? Yeah. Okay. Well, would you be able to help me with that? And you know, so you could ask the same thing. Is there anything I can assist you with? So it's a two-way win-win conversation. It's not all take. Please don't go into it just looking to get from that conversation. Okay. So for those of you watching, say hello in the comments. Let me know if this has been helpful, if you have any questions. And just to go back over this again, if you're somebody who's currently in the job market, if you're looking to consider your next move, these are the top 5 must-dos that will assist you in your job search. So number 1 is creating certainty in yourself, the confidence to show up with that certainty, whether it is on the phone, whether it's on Zoom, and whether it's in person. You want to be showing as your best self and having that confidence. You do not want to look like you're desperate. You'll just take the next job that is offered to you. You want to have clarity, number 2, on what it is you want and why you want it. And number 3, be curious. So if, for example, you see other roles that are slightly similar that you know, actually, I've got the skills for that, be open to it. Go explore it. Go talk to people. Maybe find someone who's doing a similar role. Reach out to them and ask them about it. Could you spare 5 minutes? Just talk to me about this role, what it's about, what it requires, what's your experience of it, that kind of thing. Number 4 is your contacts. So making a list of all of those contacts. Believe me, if you take the time to sit down and write down that list, you'll probably find there are people that you hadn't actually thought about before. You'd forgotten all about because it's been so long. And people might often be happy to hear from you again. So do reach out, do take the time. And then number 5 is connect. So reach out to those people, reestablish, reconnect the relationship, have a chat online. And if you feel that, you know, it'd be worth having a conversation with them, reach out and ask, simply ask. Or if they know if you can see they're connected with somebody who maybe works in the industry that you'd like to work in, ask them for an introduction. There is so much you can do rather than just sending out your CV and hoping something lands. So these are the 5 things I invite you to consider and to really take on board if you are currently in the job market or you are considering your next move. And just to wrap up on that, the final thing I'd like to remind you of is your LinkedIn profile. And I've talked about this before. Do not expect other people to refer you and recommend you if you have not taken the time and the energy to create a really good LinkedIn profile. Please don't do that, because number one, you're calling in a favor from somebody. Number two, that person is doing you a favor, but they're also putting themselves out to refer and recommend you. And the first thing people will do is go to LinkedIn to look at you. And if you haven't got a solid, full, complete LinkedIn profile, it's not going to land well. It's very quick that people will dismiss you. So if you're going to call in favors, if you're going to ask for help, please do ensure that you take the time to complete a good LinkedIn profile. And remember, it's not your CV, it is your sales page. If I look at your About You section, why should I continue reading? You want to draw me in. You want me to take 5 minutes of my day to continue reading and to have a look at, who you are and what you're about. So how can you make that happen? These are things to really consider. It's not just about filling out CVs and applying and hope something sticks. Please don't do that, because you'll end up finding you take a job just for the sake of taking another job, because you need to have that income coming in. But if you do it strategically, if you take on board these 5 must-dos that I've mentioned today, it can make all the difference to the next role that you land for yourself. So just to remind you, recap, number 1 is creating certainty in yourself, creating that confidence in the way that you're coming across to people, the way that you're showing up. Number 2 is clarity, understanding what is important for you in your next role and why is it important. Number 3 is being curious, of being open to possibilities. What else is out there? And actually, if you don't know much about something, but you think, that could be interesting, find people who know about it that you can speak to. Number 4 is to look at your contacts. Take the time to write down the people that you've worked with in the past, people you've gotten on really well with. It's very easy to lose contact, but it doesn't mean people don't want to hear from you. So do take the time to do that. And number 5 is connect with those people. Connect with them, reach out, ask for help. And ultimately make sure as well that your LinkedIn profile is up to speed. Take the time to do that. I hope today's session has been useful for you. Again, if you have any questions on this, do share them in the comments. Let me know if this resonates, if it's helpful. And if you're watching this on replay, do still continue to pop your questions, comments below, and I will come back to them, or feel free to direct message me and I'll be happy to support you as much as I possibly can. And if you are interested in learning more about building your personal brand, to recognize human potential, to be able to stand out, to be more visible, to have people have you top of mind when it comes to those hiring decisions, the promotions, even the bonuses and the salary increases. This is about building a strong personal brand. And I'm just putting the final pieces together for my personal brand playbook, which is a free PDF that you'll be able to grab hold of. So I'll pop the link below shortly, but Sharon, I know you're watching, please can you pop it in the comments. Do go ahead and register for your copy, and as soon as it is available in the next couple of weeks, you will get it sent out to you. Let me see, I've also got the link here, so feel free to register for this, and it will be sent to you as soon as it is ready. And it just talks more in depth about my personal brand blueprint and the things that you want to look at, you want to consider, to work on and to develop, so you can build a really strong personal brand. As I said, thank you for being here with me today. I hope this has been helpful for you. Reach out if you have any questions, any comments. And thank you, Shah, for popping the link in for me. And until next time, you'll see me here next week, next Thursday, same time, same place at 12:30 UK British summertime. Remember, until then, to build your influence, to make an impact, and to be remembered for all of the right reasons by showing up as the best version of you. I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, enjoy the rest of the week. And for those of you who do have a long weekend this coming weekend, have fun, enjoy, relax, and I will see you next week. Take care.